for your organizations. I'll send it to everyone. And I'm going to get ready to share this on Facebook if y'all are ready.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, we're just waiting for this to get finished setting up on live. Perfect. Okay. We are live, y'all. Welcome to our conversation here this afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you're joining from right now. My name is Jennifer Martinez. I'm the Senior Communications and Marketing Manager for Legal Voice, and I'll kind of be helping hold space for our conversation today on the decision that came out of the Supreme Court this morning on Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which has ultimately led to the overturn of Roe versus Wade, and causing about half the country to lose access to abortion. I'm going to go ahead and let our panelists and folks here in community introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Kim to get us started.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Clark, and I am, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a senior attorney at Legal Voice for reproductive rights, health, and justice. And I will pass it to Mercedes.
Hello, I'm Mercedes Sanchez with Cedar River Clinics, she, her pronouns, and I will pass it to Sarah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, and I work for Planned Parenthood of Greater Washington and North Idaho, based in Spokane, Washington. And I will pass it to Misty.
Hi, Mistie Dellicarpini-Tolman, she, her pronouns, and I'm the Idaho State Director for Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates. Back to you, Jen.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Kim, Sarah, Mercedes, and Misty. So I know we've all been running around all morning and afternoon, having calls with reporters, pressers, answering questions from community members and folks who are just wondering, what does this mean? But that doesn't necessarily mean you've all had a chance to process what this means for you on a human level, right? Not just the jobs that you are coming into or the titles that you hold, but you yourself as a person, and what this decision, how this decision is impacting you. So I'll just open it up first before we get to like the specifics again and trying to answer any questions of how are you feeling? How did this land for you this morning when it dropped from the Supreme Court? How have you had a chance to process this today? Is this your first chance? Just how are folks holding up right now?
All right, well, I'll start. It is kind of my first chance to really process this today. Well, not exactly. I just had a call with my daughter. So I have two daughters who are 21 and almost 24. And, despite all of the privilege, when I just spoke with my younger daughter, she said, I've really not been able to do any work today. I think it's really shaken her. I know also my older daughter as well, but I haven't been able to get in touch with her. I actually was born just before Roe versus Wade was decided. And I went to law school the year that Planned Parenthood versus Casey was decided. And I think that's part of the impetus for my getting involved with this kind of work. And I feel like I've been watching this happen my entire life, really. And particularly watching as my generation was not especially engaged in this issue, at least not to the degree that it should have been. And so, notwithstanding that I feel like I've seen this coming, it's still like I feel very almost numb today.
Yeah, I have been feeling numb leading up to today. And I kept telling like my friends and my colleagues and my friends that work in repro, like when I feel it, it's going to be bad. Like, I don't know what my brain is doing to like protect myself right now. But when it comes, it's not going to be fun. But this morning, you know, like the past, I'm sure everybody on this call, the past decision mornings, I was, of course, on SCOTUS Live blog and watching the decisions come in. And as soon as I saw that we had dogs, it was like, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't take a deep breath, you know, and that's pretty much how it's felt all day for me, is just this inability to like get a good deep breath. And then I've had like peppering, I think, of being able to process what's happening. Usually if it's a friend or colleague in repro who asks me how I'm doing, like you did this morning, Jen, and then the floodgates just open for a quick second and then I pull it back together. And so it's just been a roller coaster, like I'm sure it has been for everybody all day today. I think even though all of us have been preparing for this for so long, there's just no way to truly emotionally prepare. And I think that's what's going on with me right now.
Yeah, I think for me, similar to what everyone has shared, I think I'm definitely still in shock. I haven't really been able to fully process what all of this is going to mean. And I think I am very good at compartmentalizing. So I don't know when it's going to shift back where I'll be like, okay, yeah, you can feel all your emotions. And it definitely comes in waves when like I have friends reach out and ask how I'm doing or different things like that. I think it's very much been something where I'm very grateful for the community I have and the coworkers I have and the coalitions we're in, because really leaning on their support today.
I think for me, it started when I heard the news this morning with just this sinking, heartbreaking feeling, which then turned into anger. And there were many cuss words involved. And then I think it went, and what has stayed right now is just resolve. Like, this is wrong on so many levels, on human rights levels. It's not just about abortion anymore. The Supreme Court is taking away rights. That's a dark, scary place to be. So resolve. And then when I got to our clinic in Renton, talking to our staff, it was the same thing, just heartbreak, devastation, anger, a whole mixture, and then pulling it together, and we have patients to see today. And I think that resolve is continuing because we're going to have more patients to see, not just in Washington, but from around the country. And right now, little glimmers of hope have been popping up. I was on a press conference with our reproductive healthcare and rights allies, and then being on this. And then also nationally, I'm on the Abortion Care Network board. And I think my glimmer of hope is just knowing what amazing activists are in this movement, and knowing that we are pushing forward. And I think also a protective feeling for patients and marginalized communities that are impacted. And just right now, and the exhaustion might hit me later, but right now it's like, let's go, let's fight.
Thanks all for sharing your feelings, and I hope that as you continue to move forward through today and the weekend and the weeks to come, where we're just figuring out what our next steps are going to look like, that you're able to find time for yourself. And everyone here
Jen,
watching.
how are you feeling?
You know, it's horrible. I had a moment as well. I mean, we kind of shared that together this morning, Misty, where you kind of just had to let the tears flow, right? You had to let the water run so that you could get back and focus on the rest of the day. And so that's what it's been. I had food, so that's good. I got outside, I got some sun, but I think deeply about folks who are not connected as deeply to the work like us. Like, I had a conversation with my mom about an hour ago, and she's been at work all day. You know, she goes in the morning and she had no idea that this had happened. So she found out during a break from work when she called to check in. So I'm thinking about folks who still don't even know because they work in labor jobs and they work all day, and they're going to come home and find out that this happened, and you know, who's getting the information to them. So that's kind of where my brain's at, specifically in this moment. But yeah, just we'll probably cry more later. So yeah, thanks for asking, Misty. I'm actually gonna go back to you, Mercedes, really quick, because you work for Cedar River Clinics, you know, abortion provider in Washington State, and I'm just curious to hear how this is going to impact your work specifically across Washington State, with you already mentioning that it's not just going to be Washingtonians that you're going to be working with and have been working with.
So, you know, Cedar River Clinics has been around since 1979, and we provide first and second trimester abortions. So as a second trimester abortion provider, we have actually been seeing patients from other states and other countries for decades because of restrictive laws. So we feel confident in our ability and experience to help people. But I think what's challenging is the unknown piece. Like, we hear all the huge estimates about the surge in patients we're going to see. But what that will look like and how it will manifest is still a big question mark. So we're doing the best we can to prepare. And, you know, we've been preparing since the 2016 election, and COVID really made us expedite our preparation. So we launched our telemedicine program, and we were also already looking at access for Washingtonians in the eastern part of the state. So we actually just recently reopened our Yakima clinic. That's where we actually started way back in 1979. So we're really happy to be going back to our roots. And right now, we're really just focused on getting funding and also hiring staff, so that way we can be ready to meet the surge of patients, as well as to continue serving people from Washington, of course. And I think also, it's also just trying to get the word out that abortion's still legal here in Washington, but also I think within our state, just giving the caution, the warning that complacency is dangerous. 87% of our legislature is up for re-election in November. So things can change, and it appears our rights are only as good as the last election. So it's really important that people vote. And I think, you know, all the polls have shown the majority of Americans support abortion. And I think we need to show that majority at the polls in November. Because I think it's going to be a fight for clinics to be able to continue providing care to the patients in their home states and then traveling around. And then it's going to be a fight legislative and legally, and we have to make sure that abortion stays legally protected in Washington.
Thank you so much for that, Mercedes. I'm going to ask the rest of the panelists the same question. So I'm going to go to Sarah next, and you're based in Spokane, which is in Eastern Washington. For folks who might not be familiar, you're like 35 miles from the Idaho border. It's a completely different world from those of us in Western Washington. So what are the impacts that you're anticipating, that you're already experiencing based in the part of the state you're in?
Yeah, so already in Eastern Washington, so we have 11 health centers all east of the Cascades. And we're often in communities where they are already in like healthcare provider shortages, right? In these deserts where they can't receive access just because there aren't providers there. So we've already seen that Roe was really the minimum, right? It didn't guarantee that everyone had equal access. So what we're fighting here is making sure people have access to that transportation and to making sure that they can access via telehealth or other forms of healthcare in that way. And we already see in our Valley location, in our Pullman location, that we already have about 50% of our patients are from Idaho. So we're anticipating that that number is just going to grow with the ban that is likely to go in place in the next 30 days. And just really trying to prepare to make sure that we are ready for the influx of patients. And I just got a message that we already got our first call from a patient from Utah. So it's happening as we speak that folks are desperately looking for care.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. And yeah, I mean, it's already been happening. It's just going to be increased, right? Like 380 some percent are the numbers that we're seeing that Washington's going to experience from an influx of out-of-state patients. So thank you for what y'all are doing. Kim, Mistie, I'm gonna go to you next for the Idaho perspective on what this might mean for folks seeking care.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I think there is a heaviness in Idaho today, and I keep using the word devastating, but it's really hard to find another word that like encompasses the feeling that is in the air in the state of Idaho today. The people that are reaching out to me, our patients and our volunteers and activists, everybody is really concerned, really worried. And I appreciate any opportunity to let folks know that, as an organization, Planned Parenthood is not going anywhere. We're here to stand with our patients and, one-on-one with them, make sure they're able to find an appointment, connect them to resources to get them to that appointment, to handle the logistics. I'm sure that folks saw that we merged our Boise and Meridian Health Centers recently, and we were able to shift some resources really heavily into our telehealth care, and also into our patient navigator teams. And we're working on deepening our relationships with abortion funds and putting resources into our patient navigator teams so that when Idahoans need to seek this abortion care, they know they can call Planned Parenthood, and we're going to connect them with wherever they need to get to be able to receive that care. So, today it's a lot of kind of educating folks about what they can do, where they can still go. Myself being educated, I actually, just as our call started or our live started, 20 minutes ago, I saw an article that said that likely our trigger ban won't go into effect until August. And I hadn't realized that there was a difference of the types of opinions that are coming down, and that this is, I guess, a slip opinion, and it will take 25 to 30 days for the court to finalize their opinion. And from that date is when our 30 days will start. So abortion will remain legal in the state of Idaho, longer than we thought. And then on the other side, on the advocate side of things, we've been preparing along with our partners, along with folks at Legal Voice and ACLU and others for this day for a very long time. And we're busy planning ways to hold legislators accountable for the bills that they're proposing and for the votes that they're casting. And You know, it's a long road. Like, we didn't get here overnight. The anti-abortion movement did not get us in this space that we're in overnight. It took them decades to get us here. And so we know that we're not going to be able to unravel that in a month or a year. But we are in this for the long haul, and we know that we have the public on our side. We know that the majority of Americans, the majority of Idahoans, believe that abortion should remain safe and legal. And we're going to be going hard to make sure that we can reclaim this right for Idahoans, no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard the road ahead is. We're here, we're not going anywhere. And, you know, we're just kind of, I guess, strengthening our resolve. Our commitment is stronger than ever, I guess, is kind of how I'll leave that right now.
Thanks, Misty. Yeah, I feel like anyone who's ever had to do work in Idaho, like, this is just another thing in the long list of things that we kind of have to deal with on a daily basis. So thanks for the work that you're doing there. Kim, I'm going to pass it over to you to provide a little bit more of that legal context that folks might be wondering about. And thanks for sharing, Misty, about the slip decision. Like, one more day that we can get for abortion access in that state, like, that's one more day that folks have abortion. Like, it's wonderful to hear that. So, but Kim, I know that you've been doing this legal deep dive all day, so I'm just going to let you just do your thing and roll on into it.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So I'll start by breaking down the opinion a little bit. And of course, the majority opinion is almost identical to the leaked opinion that we saw come out a couple of months ago. Basically overturns Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey outright. And what the court, so Roe versus Wade was based on the due process clause of the 14th Amendment, which says that no state can deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And of course, it's pretty clear what life and property mean, but the question has always been, you know, what is this liberty interest that's protected by the 14th Amendment? And what the court says is that liberty interest is really narrow. It's basically only those rights that are deeply rooted in our nation's history and tradition. So unless it was a right that was recognized at the time of the passing of the 14th Amendment, it's not protected by the due process clause, which is really problematic because a majority of the people living in this country were not considered to be equal citizens at the time of the passage of the 14th Amendment, which means that, which I think really underscores the flaw in this approach to constitutional interpretation. And by very narrowly construing the right to abortion, the court says, because there was no right to abortion on the books at the time of the passage of the 14th Amendment, it's not protected by the Constitution now. Never mind that the reason states were banning abortion at the time of the passage of the 14th Amendment had everything to do with nativist fears about the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant race being overtaken by others who were coming into the country, other immigrant populations who were coming into the country at the time, and had very much to do also with the monopolistic interests of the medical profession. But notwithstanding all of that, the court says because it wasn't a right then, it's not a right now. But I mean, again, that's a very narrow way of interpreting the right. I think, you know, there is no right that is more deeply rooted in our nation's history and tradition than the right to be, the right to one's bodily integrity, the right to be free from government intrusions into our bodily autonomy and forced medical interventions by the state. There's no acknowledgement of that by the majority. And Justice Thomas would go even further and say there's, you know, simply no, there's, you know, that liberty clause of the due process clause just means nothing at all. There's no substantive right that is protected there. So the majority goes on to say, you know, having said all of this, you know, this opinion is really limited to abortion rights. But there's nothing in the reasoning of the opinion that would limit the opinion itself to abortion rights. So it will have, you know, far-reaching consequences in other areas of the law where that, you know, other rights that the court has recognized, the right to contraception, the right to gay marriage, the right to sexual privacy, gender affirming care, all of these things, one might say were not deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition, but the court has recognized them as well as, fundamental rights. They're fundamental human rights in addition to being fundamental rights protected by our Constitution. But the majority of the court has no time for that. So, I mean, for me, this is, and I think most legal scholars, this is just an unprecedented decision. We have never seen a Supreme Court take away a fundamental right like this after 50 years. I mean, it's just as a lawyer, very disillusioning, and particularly as someone who grew up in the shadow of the Warren Court. So what does this mean for the state of Washington? Fortunately, the right to abortion is protected in the state of Washington because the citizens of Washington, by citizen initiative in 1991, passed Initiative 120, which is otherwise known as the Reproductive Privacy Act, which basically codified the protections of Roe v. Wade into Washington law. So we have that protection. But that's, as we've been discussing, obviously the decision will have the decision will still profoundly impact the state of Washington and other safe haven states, as we expect to see a 380% increase in the number of people who rely on providers in Washington for abortion care. That obviously, without additional resources, will significantly constrain care in Washington. We also know that anti-abortion states are not likely to stop at banning abortion in their states. And so there's a lot of discussion about how states might seek to criminalize abortions that take place even outside of their borders when care is being provided to their residents. And so safe haven states are thinking about how do we at least ensure that our states are not complicit in those types of investigations. Another concern is clinic security. And I really Sarah should speak to this, but we are definitely seeing an increase in very disruptive clinic protest activity in our state. And we expect that, we only expect that to rise. And I do want to turn this over to Sarah, but the one other thing I will say is, and to Mercedes, who's also been experiencing the same thing, I think they both can speak to that. Concerns about digital surveillance, even in the state of Washington, or medical surveillance. We are hearing more and more about how the anti-abortion movement is using digital technology and digital surveillance to capture the personal health information of people who are seeking access to abortion, whether it's by crisis pregnancy centers, which outnumber legitimate reproductive health care facilities by 4 to 1 and are not covered by HIPAA because they don't actually provide any medical services, or whether it's anti-abortion groups, setting up fake Wi-Fi networks or dummy Wi-Fi networks around legitimate healthcare facilities in order to capture information from patients who log on to those networks. All of this information that's being collected, there was an article about how crisis pregnancy centers are sharing information with Facebook. All of this information could be used to support criminal and civil cases against pregnant people and their providers. So that's a huge concern for me. Of course, I've been sort of droning on, so I want to turn it back to Sarah and Mercedes if you want to talk about this clinic protest activity that we're seeing.
Yeah, for us, the biggest one has been the Church at Planned Parenthood, known as TCAP. They have been a group demonstrating out in front of our clinics for almost 4 years now. And yeah, the crowds that they draw are wildly big, and it is very intimidating for staff and patients and supporters. We'll often, on days where they are protesting, get calls from patients who would rather reschedule than have to deal with what's happening outside of our clinics, which is really sad. People should be able to come in, receive the care that they need without harassment. And a lot of those folks who protest will have cameras or drones or whatever, and they will record people, right? And when we ask folks in law enforcement to do something about it, they often don't. And so it's super frustrating, right? If all we're trying to do is provide care for folks out here, and to be faced with that type of treatment is ridiculous. And I know we have been anticipating an increase in protester activity. And I don't know what that would look like if this has already been such a huge showing of anti-abortion demonstrators, what the future will hold. And we know that anti-abortion demonstrators aren't just about anti-abortion movements, that they are tied to Proud Boys, to white nationalist activity, anti-democratic movements. It's a much more intricate web than people are realizing. So I'd say making sure that we're not giving them a pass just because it seems like a single form of activism, that we recognize that this is tied to much larger, much scarier movements that are coming after more than just abortion rights.
And I'm just going to intercede here real quick before you, Mercedes, just to connect the dots for folks who are watching perhaps from Idaho or from other parts. You recently saw like a bunch of guys get arrested in a U-Haul in North Idaho who were planning to disrupt a pride event, right? White nationalists, white supremacists. And there was a lot of outrage about that nationally. But if you're in Eastern Washington or in Idaho, you know that that's kind of unfortunately part for the course here is that type of mentality. But what Sarah mentioned is very true. Like these are connected, right? Matt Shea is connected to what happened in North Idaho recently. He's also connected to the church at Planned Parenthood and the protests that have been happening for 4 years plus. So none of these incidents are isolated. This is not just about people trying to stop abortion from happening. This is deeply rooted in white supremacy and racist ideals and systemic oppression in this country. And so we have to address all of it. And so when you hear us saying that those who are going to be most impacted are historically marginalized communities like Black, Indigenous, other communities of color, the queer and trans community, folks who are low income, like that is very true because they already experience oppression and lack of access to reproductive health care, such as abortion. And it's just going to exponentially get worse for so many communities in this country. So just wanted to connect the dots there for some folks who might need that. I'll kick it to you, Mercedes.
Thank you. Since the leaked SCOTUS opinion happened, we have definitely seen our number of protesters outside our clinics increase. And they have also gotten more aggressive. And I think with the final decision today, it's just going to embolden them because they see it as a win. And, you know, we are doing all we can to protect our staff and patients, but I think there definitely needs to be more to do with legislation and all the concerns that Kim mentioned, you know, we're concerned about as well. And because we serve and our staff is a diverse group of people, we're concerned about the marginalized communities around us as well. So BIPOC, low income, and of course the rural communities as well. Not only receiving care, but you know, connecting those dots and all those groups working together. I think there are so many issues attached. This goes way beyond abortion, and it is just a nightmare scenario for this country and our democracy. And yeah, it's bad. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. I am checking the chat just to make sure that we aren't missing any questions. that are coming in, and I don't see any right now. I'll give it a little bit just to see if we have any stragglers who are maybe typing out questions for us in the moment, but there were some good questions that I know we were addressing earlier. Maybe I'll ask that is, what does, like when the law does go into effect in Idaho, will folks be able to order medication abortion pills, into the state? Like what happens with that? I know that that's a question that we've been asked a lot recently. So whoever maybe wants to take on that question, just an easy one for y'all to address.
Yeah, I was gonna see if Kim wants to tackle that one for us.
Sure. Well, so the Idaho trigger ban explicitly exempts pregnant people from criminal liability for having an abortion. But it does impose criminal liability. In fact, it's a felony to provide abortion care, including arguably medication abortion, to patients in Idaho, which will make it obviously very difficult to obtain medication abortion, which will mean that many people will have to travel across state lines to access care. And I think that's about the best answer I can give to that question.
Okay. No, thanks for answering that. I know that's the one that we're getting quite often. I'm not seeing any other questions. So if folks do have questions and you missed the Zoom or like the Facebook Live, or you're watching this later today or tomorrow or this weekend, feel free to reach out to any of the organizations here via our Facebook or our social media pages, and we'll do our best to get back to you. But to start closing us out, not quite the close yet, but almost. Is there anything else that you all want to add about your work, what you're doing, what you want to make sure folks know before we close out today's conversation?
Well, I'd love to share what we're doing, because I'll tell you this, we're definitely not sitting still. Organizations across the Pacific Northwest have come together to co-create a regional coalition of advocacy groups and grassroots organization to combat what's happening. And the purpose of that coalition is threefold. It's one, to share information, because we know this is no longer a federal issue or a state issue, but a regional issue. And so to share information, also to make policy recommendations to safe haven states about what they can do to protect and expand access to care, and just advance reproductive justice more broadly, and then also to sort of really influence the public discourse around abortion and begin, combating this rewriting of history that the other side has been so successful with over the past 50 years, where the majority of people now somehow believe that abortion rights are inherently in tension with religion or moral values. That is absolutely wrong, and we intend to right that wrong here in the Pacific Northwest. And at Legal Voice, our litigation continues. We do work not just in federal court, and we will continue our defensive work in federal court. Idaho can be sure of that. But we also do work in state courts. So we're looking at ways to use state law and state constitutions to expand and advance gender equity throughout the Pacific Northwest, and that work will continue as well. And then we are looking at lots of different know your rights materials and training, so that pregnant people, providers, people who would provide help to pregnant people who are crossing state lines to access care, have all the information that they need.
Thanks, Kim. Mistie?
Yeah, that's a lot. Y'all are amazing at Legal Voice. Being a part of these regional groups has been part of what has been giving me hope in these times, is feeling that genuine care from our bordering states that will still have access, and joining in the fight together to be able to make sure that everybody can make their own decisions, control their own futures, and have autonomy over their own bodies. And so that's doing is always something that helps give me hope in times like this. In addition to the groups, we're also, I'm putting my C4 hat on really quick, and we're diving into some election season here soon, and I'm getting volunteers connected into those. And, in case folks weren't here at the beginning of the call, I am going to repeat myself a little bit, because I just want anybody who might be watching right now to know that, even beyond the, 55 to 60 days that we still have left of abortion being legal and accessible in Idaho, Planned Parenthood as an organization will be here for Idahoans to make sure that if you need abortion care, we will get you to where you need to be. We will help you along the way. We will connect you with folks you need to be connected with. And so I don't want people to be, stressed and worried about not having anywhere to go. They can call us. It's 1-800-230-PLAN still is the phone number to call. It'll put you in touch with patient navigation teams that are ready to help connect you with abortion funds, get you into our neighboring states that have access to abortion care, and make sure that you get the care you need and any follow-up care back here in Idaho that you might need to. So, I'm holding both things at the same time, this idea that this is such a devastating day and such a devastating moment, and that is true, and we are with you in that. And also, you're not alone. It's not hopeless. We're here to help you, and we're not going anywhere.
So for Cedar River Clinics, we are participating in the regional coalition that Kim mentioned, as well as being part of many national organizations and groups. And I think I would just ask for help spreading the word that abortion is illegal in Washington, and that you can come to Cedar River Clinics for first or second trimester abortions. We're committed to helping people get the care they need, and we can help connect with resources as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I think everyone added great information. I think from us at Gwynnie, I think that our message is just, our doors are open. We're here serving patients right now downstairs, and we will be here no matter what. And we also provide first and second trimester abortions. We have 11 different health centers that folks can find on our website. And yeah, just spaces like this are really encouraging. I think community care is really important, and there's a lot of power in our coalition. So really leaning on that today, and as we look to the future.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And everyone else for just like the last pieces of nuggets of wisdom and education for all of our folks who are watching this. Because we are not just our jobs and our titles, I think it's important for us to also name like what is one thing you can do to take care of yourself. Once the calls die down and the emails start to slow down this evening, hopefully, fingers crossed that they do a little bit. What is one thing you are going to do to take care of yourself? It's important for us to model that too for all the activists who are watching, because that's the way we're going to be able to fight this, right? It's a marathon and not a sprint. So all models, as I'm asking, I'm going to, I think, take a walk outside and probably turn my notifications off while I'm doing that, so that I don't get tempted to look at my phone. So I'm going to take a walk and maybe try to find some time to spend with beloved community, so that I can just be surrounded by love. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Kim.
Oh, wow. I think probably the same, assuming that we get some sunshine this weekend, because I'm not sure I'll get a chance to enjoy the sunshine much today. But and I think definitely I plan on calling my daughters and spending a little more time with them on the phone. And then I think there's a bath and a big glass of wine in my future this weekend. I'll pass it to Mistie.
Yep, I'm going to retweet what Kim just said. Definitely a bubble bath with a glass of wine is in the near future. Again, what gives me hope is being in community and being with folks who are like experiencing this as well. And so tomorrow I'm going to be downtown Boise at the Shreve Buckner Park protesting this with other Idahoans. And I look forward to sharing that space. I wish I could share my sunshine with folks in Washington. I just had to like close my curtain because it's so bright. So I will be walking in the sunshine later. And on Sunday, I'm going to go with my family to see a same-sex kiss in the Lightyear movie that everybody's losing their minds over. So we're going to go see the Buzz Lightyear movie, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah. And I will pass it over to Sarah.
Yeah, care is really important. I think it's something I've been trying to be better at. I think it's hard when we're in spaces where we know the work is really important to feel like we can just keep going. But I know you can't pour from an empty bucket. Isn't that the saying? So trying to really remember that. It's also sunny here in Spokane. So sorry for the West Siders. So I'll probably just like sit outside in the patio in the sunshine. I'm a Californian, so anytime there's sun, I am right there in it. And likely on Sunday, just, surround myself with friends and community, maybe have a lake day and try to turn off my phone so that I don't have that temptation to look at stuff and do that type of work. But yeah, and tonight we're rallying. If you are someone who's in Spokane, we're rallying at 5 p.m. at the federal courthouse on Riverside. And that'll be a good space to get loud and get angry together.
So as part of self-care, I like the idea of getting loud and angry. I think the walk in the sunshine would be really nice, but I think I might also search out something like a punching bag or something I can throw like balls at, or isn't axe throwing a thing now? And maybe think of a picture to put that I can aim the balls or axes at. Because I do think part of self-care is it's really important to be able to get out the negative feelings as well.
Axe throwing, we may have to add that one to the list. So thanks so much, y'all. Thank you again to everyone who's watching and in community with us online. We're gonna hop off for now. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out and sign up for all of the organization's newsletter lists, because we're all sending out various information today and in the coming weeks on just all of the moving pieces that come with this decision. Thank you so much. Hydrate, eat some food, take care of yourselves, and we'll connect soon.
Thank you, Jen, for facilitating and for all the amazing, amazing work you've done